like to tell the story that the family knows about Tressa, who was Florence Ethel Schmidt Clark's grandmother, and she loved her dearly. And Tressa was a very kind woman who did everything she could to make Florence happy. She decided that when they were mining in summer times, they would leave Coeur d'Alene and go up toward the mining area in North Idaho, up around uh, Cataldo and places they were where they could get into the mountains more deeply, more clearly, and maybe find some gold or silver or whatever they were looking for. Anyway, but what they missed after leaving Coeur d'Alene was a nice, soft place to sit on for Florence, who was an only child, and she really missed sitting on the grass in the hot summer times. And so Tressa got a great idea. When they went up to their mining cabin, which was something they had built, that her husband had built, um, that Charles Waters was her husband, and they had built a cabin there along with her grandfather, uh, Benjamin Schmidt. He would live there with him, and there was just a cabin that they used mostly just when the weather was warm and there was no snow during all of their mining season. Usually in the beginning of June till school started sometime in early September. So Tressa saw that Florence was looking for something, and she said, "I wish that I had a place that I could go to sit on soft grass when it's so hot outside." And Tressa got the idea. She says, "I think we could make that work." So she and Florence worked together to spread out a small place that they could make into that they were planning to plant some, um, maybe some soft grasses that they could find by the creek or something like that, that would make a place for her to sit on. But it was too dry up there, and they really needed some grass seed, she thought. So Anthony was, or excuse me, Charles, the grandfather, Tressa's husband, was in on the thing, and he thought it'd be a good idea too. So he helped to make even bigger area for the family to sit on warm summer evenings. And so when next time he went to Coeur d'Alene for supplies, Florence got in the wagon and rode with him. And they rode in, and he bought um, seed in a bag, and he brought up a small bag of seed. They were so excited to the the ground was ready to plant some seed, and he was ready to hand water it very carefully, so the seed would sprout, and in a few weeks they would have a nice soft place to enjoy the summer evenings. So they went on with that, and Tressa was excited, Florence was excited, everybody was. After a couple of weeks, they could see the little shoots coming from the ground, and they were indeed growing. And um, her grandparents told her not to not to walk where the grass was because it would hurt it. And so to wait until it's tall enough so that it would not be hurt by walking or sitting on it. So Florence waited very patiently. And she said after about another month, the the grass was, she said, a couple inches high, but it was sort of funny looking grass. And she said finally her grandfather came and said, "Florence, I need to tell you something. Um, what we thought was grass seed was not grass seed. It's actually growing turnips there." And my grandmother said she really wanted to cry because you can't sit on turnips in a cool summer evening, and because that would be sitting on food. And so all she could do is just bring some mosses from that she had gathered by the creeks and water places, and they made some sort of areas that they could sit on. So they cared that, and they had to weed and take care of and water the turnips all summer long, and they grew well up there. But Grandma Clark said it was the most amazing thing because they didn't find any gold particularly, certainly not enough to call it a high earning summer uh, job. And so they had to leave their place in Catalo slash Kingston. They called it both those things, and had to go back to Coeur d'Alene. Um, but before they left, um, the adults said, "Okay, we need to pick all of the turnips." And Grandma Clark said there were hundreds of turnips. And she said now that they were big enough, and said that they will help with our food supply since we don't have as much money as we had hoped. So that's what they did. They pulled the turnips, put them in the back of the wagon, and that was a sad experience. And so Grandma said it still was a sorrow to her. She said, but when they got back home, food was in short supply, money was in short supply, and it was about oh late 19 teens in years. And so she said her mid 19 teens. And she said that it was disappointing, but she said the blessing in it all was that they had food all winter long. Some families did not have enough food, but they did. And she didn't have any idea that you could do so many things with turnips, that you could prepare them in so many ways. They could be steamed and boiled. They could be mashed. They could be used as the ingredient for in breads and mixed with flour. Said you could make pancakes with them. And Grandma Clark said she learned many things that you could do with turnips. So what started out as a terrible tragedy to her ended up be a great blessing because they did have plenty to eat all that next winter. Stop.